Good afternoon, guys. Welcome along. It is 12:37 on Monday, the 24th of July, 2023, and I think I've just got everything pretty much the way I want it here. Sorry, it's just taking me a little bit longer to do this past couple of times. Let me just check the sound level, because I know sometimes that can be an issue. That looks not too bad. Okay, so a slightly different view of the market today compared to what I usually have showing. Normally I would be on this one, which they show as the advanced view. I personally like to use these little candles, which are, if you go in here, it's the Heiken Ashi candles. I'm not sure if that's how that's pronounced, but that's what I refer to them as. But you can choose other options, as you can see there, just depending on how you want to view the market, and obviously depending on the platform that you're using as well. As I say, this is my preferred view, personally speaking. I think it is probably one of the best views for looking at the market on a platform like YouTube as well, but I suppose hypothetically you could use any. I find this one the easiest to make sense of. But yeah, as I say, I was on this other tab earlier, the portfolio tab, and I just thought it looked interesting because of the way if we this is on a 3-month interval, so this is showing the last 3 months. But if you can see this, I'm not sure if you can. There's a beneath the blue line there is a sort of a faint charcoal grey coloured line, which tracks upwards, and that basically is representative of the investment that I've been putting in each week. And at this point, in fact, if you can make it out, you can just about see that the charcoal line is just above the blue line, and that's why we've got the negative return showing there. And in fact, somewhere on this, I think I did actually find a negative return of about 4% at one point. I think I'm right in saying that, although I'll tell you what, actually, maybe it was on the year. It was whenever it was set to a year. There. Okay. So at that point, although I can't make that bigger to represent it, so the highest that I was able to find in terms of a negative return, looking back over this investment journey, is minus 4.7%. That was in January this year. But obviously, as we've been increasing the amount in the portfolio week by week, at that time we were taking advantage of dollar cost averaging. So you can see the amount invested stepping up each week as another £120 is added all the time. That's why that appears as fairly regular kind of steps in the charcoal grey part. The blue line, although it represents steps to some sort of an extent, obviously is subject to the market fluctuation, and that just knocks it off slightly. But what is interesting is if you note that from about May, from about the middle of May, there seems to be a more and more noticeable gap between the blue line, the portfolio value, and the charcoal line, the value invested, and that gap has been increasing pretty consistently up to the point that we're at now, where we have had 6 3/4% difference 3 or 4 days ago, so towards the end of last week. That has come back a little bit now, but let's go back on to the other view, the one that I'm more accustomed to, so that's this one. And looking at that view, so you can see all the same information pretty much. There's our portfolio value, currently sitting at almost plus 6.5% on the amount invested. And let's get on and put in our weekly £120 worth of stock into the S&P 500 from Vanguard. And as you know, this is the Trading 212 demo platform. So this time, whereas recently we've been buying just over 1.8 shares because of the increase in price, we are now buying just under that, 1.79. Thankfully you can buy fractional shares within Trading 212. So let's send that through. That has executed, I believe. I saw the number of shares change here, and I see that the portfolio value has increased as well. So guys, just to take a look at figures, currently the price for the Vanguard S&P 500, £66.99.97p. It sounds like some kind of a sale in Tesco's, doesn't it? 99.97p. So I suppose, I don't know if this is what day traders would call a point at which the market is being tested, but I would expect that it'll probably break through the £67 threshold. Certainly if we look at my little trend line thing, it would indicate a fair price of roughly £86 per share, but obviously that's not where we're at the current time. In terms of the figures from a comparative standpoint, currently the market is down, what would you call that, almost a fifth for today, but up almost 2.5% compared to this time last week. It's up nearly 3.5% compared to this time a month ago. 6 2/3 compared to this time 3 months ago, and actually about the same as that compared to this time a year ago. So as we know, there has been, and I keep referring to the roller coaster, and in some respects which figures appear here depends just on whether or not a year ago or 6 months ago was a crest or a peak, or a dip, maybe I should say. And really, I suppose, for from that point of view, going back a year is rather nonsensical. In my opinion, things really started to turn around for the market from about March, the end of March. There was a sort of a fairly consistent looking rise, although it obviously came back a little bit, but not significantly, and it has kind of continued on that sort of same healthy-ish looking trajectory since. Now admittedly, this past fortnight or so, things appear to have taken off slightly. I don't think that's anything to worry about. There was more talk about interest rates and whether interest rates had been increased kind of too quickly or more quickly than gave the market time to react and time to adjust, and some suggestion that interest rates could actually be so high now that that they should start to knock inflation back quite significantly. Honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's not great if you're looking for a loan, I suppose, but in terms of the effect on the stock market, I think that's fairly positive, and that might be why we have seen a fairly good fortnight just in that last week or two. Let's just have a quick look at notifications. So that's our most recent purchase. Philips down 5%. They voiced concerns over future Chinese demand. If it's the company that I'm thinking of, Philips is a long-standing company. Presumably they have a reasonably good reputation. I wouldn't doubt that Chinese demand may well reduce if they've got similar or better comparative products. It's going to be up to Philips to get their act together and increase their basically bring their offering up to standard to meet the challenge from the Chinese. Danaher up 5% as Sartorius AG anticipates post-summer surge in lab tools orders. Okay, that sounds like something scientific to me, but I don't know. Moving on. Scholastic up 12% in response to earnings beat and 100 million share repurchase. That sounds good for that company. There's American Express down 4% after raising provisions for credit losses. Basically, American Express, Amex, is concerned that people may not be able to repay money they have borrowed, and they have made provision for that. I fail to see why that should knock their price down, albeit it's 4%. It's not more than that. This comes across as a sensible move, in my opinion. But what would I know? Digital World acquisition soars 40% after settling SEC fraud charges. I'm always suspicious is perhaps the wrong word, but I'm always wary, I suppose, if I see that someone has settled something, because usually you'll find that they have settled on the basis of not admitting any liability, and typically settling is a way out of going through what could prove to be a costly legal fight between two parties, and I suppose the idea is that by paying some kind of fee, and goodness knows how you would negotiate that if your position was that you hadn't done anything wrong, then the idea would be that saves both parties money. Presumably you pay a lesser fee if you're the company because you've not officially been found to be at fault, so therefore the fee or the amount that you pay cannot be as much as you might expect to pay otherwise. But for the regulator, equally, they are not committing resources to following the allegations through and potentially risking being found to be wrong by a court, and rather than do that, they collect this settlement fee. But and I suppose hypothetically they are seen to have fired a warning shot across the bows of whatever the company is that's involved. Yeah, I mean, I'm waffling a bit, but basically it's tricky. How do you justify a 40% increase when in fact what has happened, and I don't know any specifics at all. I've heard nothing about this, but what has happened here is that the SEC, the Securities and Exchanges Commission, I think it is, had some kind of a fraud investigation begun or started or whatever, and obviously it must have felt there was some grounds to it. It just seems strange to see such a massive increase even in the wake of that. Anyhow, guys, that is probably pretty much it for today. We have done our investment for the day. It's year 1 week 16, I believe I said. And yeah, a bit of a disclaimer: the market can fall as well as rise. Hypothetically speaking, you could get back less than you invested. And as we've seen at points in the past, the value of this hypothetical portfolio has been worth less than the amount that was invested, although at the present time we are seeing a bit more than a 6% increase in the amount invested. And as time goes on, I would expect to see that increase. It may go the other way again. I'm not too sure when, but yeah. This is, after all, roughly an 8-year fire journey. We're a year and a bit through that. So we've got another 7 years and a bit left to see how the portfolio performs, and I'll be investing at £120 per week for the next 7 years or thereabouts. Guys, if you enjoy the content, if you're curious to see how it goes, why not subscribe to the channel? And if you particularly like this one, why not give it a thumbs up? I'll be back again next week with some more, and all that really remains for me to do in the meantime is to thank you for watching, and as I say, to invite you to come back again next week.